Hi, my name is Bob Carey, and welcome to the B&H event space. I'm here to talk about a project that I have called the Tutu Project, and it basically started out as a project to deal with tougher times in my life. And I've done that since 1994 when my mom passed away. But this is mainly about the Tutu Project, which has become a project that facilitates helping people with breast cancer and helping pay for things that insurance doesn't pay for. In 1994, I opened my studio in Phoenix, Arizona, and it was really important for me to have a studio, and be a commercial photographer. That's like in 1979, I started photography, and it was after a skateboard accident. And after I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, my father said, "Why don't we go buy a camera? It's a lot safer." But what he didn't know is I was going to be photographing skateboarders. And so I went to community college. I took my first photo class. I processed my first roll of film. And, that wasn't that exciting because I couldn't see it, develop. But once I made a print, I knew that that's pretty much what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I mean, I printed every negative I had. I was just so excited, and that was 52 years ago. My mother passed away in 1989, but I opened my studio with my wife, Linda, in 1994, and all I did after she died was focus on my career and didn't really grieve my mom. And so one day I was using monofilament for a photograph, and I was I went into the bathroom and I just had the monofilament in my hand. I just started wrapping my head, and it made me feel like safe and nurtured, and except it started to hurt after a few minutes. But I knew I needed to document this, and so the first image I did in my self-portraiture was where I wrapped my head in fishing line. And I did this project for about 9 years, and it was the first time that I really gotten in touch with like my art side. I went to art school. I have a BFA in art photography, but I was only going to school for my mom. I didn't do it for myself. I just knew I needed to get out of school for her. And so, but once I did this project, it was like I hadn't grieved my mom for 5 years, and it's like this was like I had to do this every day. And back in the 90s, it was like I was shooting all day long, and then I would set up time to do this project. And this went on for 9 years. And it was kind of a way to hide out in my work, and it's not really wasn't really a particularly happy time, and I would prefer never to go back to this time because it was, wasn't that inspirational to me as far as, being happy, or to get out of that. But I feel like it was something that I used to get through that time. During this time, this work, I started showing this work in galleries and museums, and I had a client, an advertising client in Phoenix that had their client was Ballet Arizona, and they wanted me to give my interpretation of ballet. But I really, first thing I thought of was photographing ballerinas, but that wasn't really going to be me. That was something that I thought they wanted. So I had my stepmother make a tutu for me. And this is the first image that I did. And for me, this work is all about being vulnerable, being, self-expressed. And during this time, I was thinking about moving to a different city. I've lived in Phoenix, Arizona for 42 years and felt like I didn't want to die knowing I never went anywhere else. And so my wife and I sold everything we had. We put it in a truck in our van and moved to Greenpoint, Brooklyn 16 years ago. And we took the tutu with us. And this was the first image I made in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I had no idea what I was doing, but it was the first time I'd ever done anything outdoors and in color. And I had a bunch of old film left over, VPS film that was out of date, so that's why the colors are kind of funky. And I was shooting film, and we were on our way to New York. This was the first day, so this took a lot of this was a 14-hour travel day because we did this. It just took too much time. So after we moved to New York, it was like the comparison between living in Phoenix and Arizona is like moving to the moon without oxygen. For me, it was like way different than visiting. It's like now I live here. And so Linda has always been a big support, my wife. She's worked with me. She's my producer. And she knows like when I'm not, feeling good, I should go out and do the work. So I started going around our neighborhood and making these images. This is Greenpoint 16 years ago before everybody moved in. So it was about being in this big city, but feeling like here I am, and I felt way out of place. So what I do is when I feel not comfortable, I just kind of go to the deep end. And I started making this work. And then one day I went to Coney Island, and I was using a flash. I was, doing everything to, I didn't know what direction I was going, but I knew that, that I needed to do this work. I was there 7 days. I was there 7 hours, and it was really cool. It was like kind of like the stage or a theater. It was like performance. And then at the end of the day, I kind of, I went to the dark side a little bit. But so this was in the summer, and we had moved there in April. And in January or in December, my wife, Linda, was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of breast cancer. And that threw me for a loop because that's how my mom died. It was the same thing. It was pretty much the same diagnosis, except it was worse than my mom's, even though my mom died. So at that point, I asked Linda, do you want to move back to Phoenix? And she's like, no, we're here. The best doctors are here. I'm not going to move. And so that put it back on me. It's like, okay, there's no easy way out. So I just started making these pictures. I was traveling all around the country. This is in California, and this is all filmed. So I had to have, people there to shoot it because I was shooting medium format. I needed somebody to, click the shutter, and I would set it up. And so this work was film in the beginning. The images are a little bit mixed up, but so whenever I wasn't feeling good, or Linda could tell, even during her recovery, she'd just say, go away, and basically do your work because I know you'll feel better when you get back. And especially when I was on the road, I would send her images back and they would make her feel better and make her feel happy. This is at a lake where Linda's family has a house, and this is a very special lake to her. So we started incorporating, she was in chemo at this time, and we started incorporating these trips, and she was part of the project, and she's part of the edit. She would help me edit. This image was right after my father passed away, and when I came home, I said to my wife, I said, I need to go on a road trip. And it, you know, for me, living on the East Coast, like the whole East Coast of New Jersey was an adventure, you know, because it was so cool. It was like the 50s, you know, Wildwood, they had all these retro things. It's like a set. And so we went on this trip for 10 days with our dog and our Astro van, and we were just going down the East Coast. This one, I was scouting this all day, and it was overcast all day long, and I saw them putting the palm fronds. It was 3 weeks before Memorial Day, so they were putting these plastic palm fronds on, and it was the funniest thing. But I went inside, asked the person told the person what I wanted to do, and they said no problem. And at the end of the day, the sun came out. It kind of looked like Miami Beach a little bit, you know, back in the 50s. And I had a Apple box with me, and I set it up there, and I had a remote. This was the first time I started using my remote with my digital camera. And I found that it gave me so much freedom. So I stood up on the Apple box, and I latched onto this fiberglass palm tree, and I was pulling fiberglass out of my chest for 3 days. It was horrible, but it was, you know, a great shot. And you can see the palm trees on the right. They didn't put the palm fronds on. They didn't finish that day. So I started working with color and just, you know, architecture and this, you know, the center of things. And I would, you know, just do it that way. And it was all just discovery, and it was magic too. It was, you know, pretty awesome. This image, this is on Loose Ferry, and I asked permission from one person, but it wasn't the captain, and he told me the captain would see me right away. And I had a remote. I had a cheap Chinese remote that was like $15 for a set, and I bought like 20 of them. And in case I wanted to jump in the water, I just jump in the water and throw that set away and do another one. And this shot, they shut me down in about 30 seconds. Linda was up with the tripod on the deck. There were 3 guys on her. There were 3 guys on me. They thought I had a knife or a detonator or a bomb, because, you know, and then I got on. So after that, I showed them my work, showed them what I was doing, and then got off the boat, and the police came and searched my van with their dog. You know, the stories, there's a lot of stories. So this was a hotel in Wildwood. I kind of liked this hotel. Linda couldn't stand it, but I liked the fact that there was a picture of a ballerina above the lamp. And this was like 3 o'clock in the morning. So this is a project that I knew I had to do, and it was something I couldn't stop doing. It was just like, if I loved to ride motorcycles, or, you know, have a hobby or a sport, like this is what I had to do as much as possible. This is the Borgata, and this was actually the first time the police ever came. And the cars, there was a on-ramp or off-ramp to the hotel right in front of me, and the police came and pulled up, and they said, do you have a tutu in the car? Because I'd already finished. Usually the police come when I'm done. Like, I'm already got the shot. But these guys wanted to pose with me, and as the guy pulls up, he said, the dispatcher, you could hear, he says, "We have another sighting of the ballerina on Borgata Way." And these guys now, I've, talked to them online, since the project went viral. And so I'm going to go through these images and get to really why I did what I did with this project and published a book. In 2007, Linda was, her cancer came back to her liver, and so that made her stage 4. She had to go back and start getting her drug again, and she would bring the pictures to the cancer center and tell the women and show them the pictures, and she would come back and tell me stories about what they said and what they were going through, these people, as they were having their first treatments. And she was telling me that some people would bring their kids because they couldn't afford child care. They were having a hard time getting rides back to their their apartment because they couldn't afford it, and they were sick and it would take a couple hours. And I'm like, well, why don't we, publish a book, and then we'll give the proceeds to people that need help. And so I always have big ideas, usually bigger than I can handle. But so Linda and I started working on this more, and I kept traveling a lot because I didn't have a lot of clients in New York at the time, and I was just traveling mainly. I didn't really have a studio anymore. I had one in Brooklyn, but it was just for my personal work. And it seemed like I would, I'd take the tutu everywhere I went, pretty much, and would do this in my off time. This image was outside of Wickenburg, Arizona. It had, it was like 115 degrees out, and I had no cell service, and I have really bad knees, so it was kind of a stupid thing to do. This was in Medellin, Colombia, and I kind of thought that looked like me, so I had to take the picture. This was the day, actually, that we went to Times Square. I always thought that the Holy Grail would be Times Square, and it would be the hardest place to do it, but it was actually the easiest place to do a picture. But this was after that, so this was at the Bedford stop in Williamsburg, and there was nobody there. I mean, it was 7:30 on a Friday night. This was probably, it was 2007, so it was 12 years ago. And there were people there, but they kind of, walked away, but this is at the other end. So in 2007, I had gotten a book offer, and they were going to publish my book. And then 2008 came along, and the economy crashed, and they had to pass on my book. And the editor-in-chief referred me to a literary agent, but they couldn't really figure out, how to place my book. So the book was, people didn't really know how to handle it. And plus it was like 2008 or 2009. And so nobody really, didn't want to take the chance. So it was shopped all over the country. Everybody passed on it. And I knew that this had a place, and this spoke to people, especially cancer patients and survivors. So I have a friend that was teaching at International Center for Photography. I would speak at her class every semester, and I would show like 10 of these images and say, this is what I wanted to do. And one day, this gentleman comes up, and it was a night class, and he said, when you're ready to do something with this project, let me know. my wife had breast cancer, and I'm a producer at the Today Show. So whenever you're ready to do with it, whatever you're going to do, let me know, and I'll do the best piece I've ever done if they let me do the piece. So over 3 years, he and I became really good friends, and we'd go out at night and hang out. And then in 2011, this collection of work just started building and building, and I'm like, and my hard drives are dying, and it's like, I have to do something with this before it all goes away. And so I decided, we want to do this book, but it's going to cost a lot of money. I don't want to, I need to raise the money. So we did. It was before Kickstarter. Kickstarter was out, but we didn't use Kickstarter. We decided to sell prints, and we opened up a new edition of prints, and we would sell a print and a book for $500. And I think it's, for me, this wasn't a calculated thing. This was out of my passion for knowing that I had to do this, just like that other work. I had to do it. But I was doing things where I was doing, incorporating more fun aspects, like people, like me jumping, my, just to make it a little happier, because it was a new time for my wife and I, and she was going through a lot. So it was always it was good to see her smile. So we started putting it out there that we were going to sell prints, and then we needed to raise around $80,000 to publish the book. I mean, my designer, I said, well, how much is 1,000? And he told me that would be 30,000. And I said, well, how much is 5,000 books? And it was like the price quadrupled, but the price went down per book. And I'm like, I never thought that I could ever have the possibility of having 4,000 books in my basement. It's like, why didn't I think of that? Like, that was after the fact. That was like, I kind of missed that part. And so we went ahead, and Linda wrote a mission statement, and we sent that mission statement out saying what we wanted to do and where we wanted to use the money to help people. And we sent it out to 1,300 of my Facebook friends. Before, you used to be able to get their email addresses from Google, but you can't anymore. Well, you probably can, but it's harder. And so we sent it out, and somebody sent our project into the New York Daily News. Came out on a Monday. I went to the 7-Eleven to pick up a few newspapers, and Linda calls me and said that she was just interviewed by Yahoo, and I needed to get home. And I got home, I called them, they interviewed me, and they were like saying they were thinking about putting us on their homepage. But I 7 years ago, I didn't know what that meant. And so I sent them the pictures, and about 2 hours later, my computer started blowing up. And then I ran upstairs and I asked Linda, I'm like, check our Facebook fan page. And she said, and she looked, and where it has the little thing where it says how many people like your stuff. And it was like 4K, this was in an hour. And I'm like, what does K mean? And everything just changed. I mean, this was like that day we got I got an email that said, hi, Bob, saw your project in the news today. Are you in the New York area? Eric. And it was the vice president of the NFL, and we were up till 3:30 in the morning writing emails, and pretty much our whole life changed after that. As far as, it wasn't about the work. It was about the work, but it was more about, it was hitting somebody other than the photo people. It was hitting the cancer community. And so we were, 3 days after that happened, we were on Fox News. We were, like Fox and Friends. And then I called my friend at the Today Show. He got the permission to start the project. I mean, to start shooting for a 7.5 minute interview on the Today Show. That came out, and we sold 75% of what we needed in 12 hours. And within 7 months of me declaring that I was going to make this happen, I said I would give it a year. And if it didn't happen in a year, I was done. And within 7 months, I had 5,000 books on pallets in my driveway. And it was incredible. And so it also, at that time when that all happened, we needed to get a 501c3 right away. And so we hired an attorney to do it right away, and everything just happening really fast. And, I think that if people say, okay, I'm going to do this passion project and I'm going to figure it out, I think that usually doesn't work, because every time I've said I'm going to do a project and I'm going to create my own style, and this was really organic, just like the other one. Not saying that people have to die or get sick around you to make things happen, but I think it's about passion. I think it's about loving what you do and having to do it. It's like it's something you have to do. Then I started doing more things in speaking, and I did 3 TED Talks. This was in Kalamata, Greece. This was the day that their economy crashed, so there was really nobody at the beach except for us. This happened about a year later. We were contacted by T-Mobile in Germany, and they wanted to do a commercial about our project, about how it went viral and how people were sharing. And they came over here, and we did 3 days in New York, and it was, the stories, I think, are really heartwarming. A lot of them are, like these kids were construction workers. They were seeing things on the High Line, and they were, had their hard hats on, and the little boy asked his teacher, why is he, dressed so funny? And he said, well, maybe he thinks you look funny too with your yellow vest. And this was during the shoot, and this was the shot we did. And it's just, the adventure. It's been 16 years, and I'm still doing this. And this is the Boston Ballet. The first, after the Today Show, we got a call from Bloomingdale's, and the senior vice president of marketing and philanthropy said they wanted to sponsor us. So they sponsor 7 people, one institution, BCRF, which is mainly all research, and then there's 2 grassroots organization. It's ourselves and Marisa Marchetto, who's the cancer vixen, and she does things like us, where she provides things to help people from keeping their hair falling out, and works with Mount Sinai. So most of the locations I go to are, work related. And this one was actually like a 2-day vacation in San Diego with my friend. It was pretty amazing. This is down the street from my house in New Jersey, and then the woman that lives in the house behind called the police on me, and as I was finishing up, just shooting brackets of, for the sky because it was blowing out, the police came and they were screaming at me. And this is the town, I live about a half mile from here, and they were screaming at me to put my pants back on because I was just shooting, and I probably didn't have my shirt. I just had my shorts on. I was shooting, and I told them, I said, just look up the Tutu Project, and that's the easiest way for you to figure out what I'm doing. And 30 seconds later, they were asking about Linda and asking if she was okay. And so now I'm really good friends with the whole police department, and they help me out a lot. And they're now sponsors of our foundation. I think that, I put a lot of images in here, so I'm going to start going through them because, just to think about, like, there's stories for just about all of these, And for example, I went the day before, told the police the day before. They said if I come back at 3 a.m, I can do it. And so I got there and I was late, and they said I couldn't do it. But then they talked to their chief, and he said, do whatever you want. And this one, there were joggers coming up, and they would jog through and they'd take a picture of Lincoln. This is the Lincoln Memorial. And he kind of chuckled, this man, he's probably 65, just really in great shape. And he kind of chuckled, and I said it was for a breast cancer initiative. And he stopped, and he pulled his pants down a little bit, showed me a scar like this long where they had removed a kidney, and he shook my hand and thanked me for what I was doing. And to me, that was it wasn't about me anymore. It was, it was me feeling grateful that I had something like photography to express myself and to, help others along the way. This is actually at a friend of mine now, but my nephew works for him. He's Kirby Chambliss flies for Red Bull, and this is his private runway in the desert. And my nephew flew me out there, and we did this shot. And my nephew, this is his buddy flying the plane, but my nephew was flying another plane circling, and they were just buzzing me the whole time. This is after our shoot or our commercial in Berlin. This is in Cologne, and their RTL was doing a story on us. And then the police came, and I had no idea what he was saying, but I just kept saying "Donka, Donka, Donka," and he just kept coming after me. And and my assistant knew German, so he helped out. This one actually, my friend was in this little dinghy. He was laying down on the floor of the boat, and my friend was on the dock, and he shot this in Martha's Vineyard. Oh, okay. So we have a client or a sponsor called JetLinks, and they raise money for us, and we do pictures every year. This is our 5th year anniversary with them. My camera is up on this scissor lift, and I have it tethered. That's where I am. And so wherever we shoot, we ask the fire department if they'll come hose down the area with their tanker truck. And they're always really cool about it because they really don't have a lot to do. It's the airport fire department. Luckily, they don't have anything to do. So this is, so here I am covering my computer with my tutu, and they're hosing it down, and that's the final shot. And it's I love aviation too. My dad tested jet engines for a living for 40 years. And so for me to be around aircraft is just the best. This was actually a month ago. We were back in Tennessee, and my brother-in-law suddenly passed away, and he lived in the middle of nowhere, and his wife said, there's an ATM machine on a farm. These guys just bought this thing and put it there just for, you know, being funny. And so after the memorial, the whole family got into all the cars and we went out and did the shot, and it really kind of broke the day up, you know, and it was a very, you know, just looking for things that are different. This was the shot I did before the one of the Washington Monument, and what was cool is I'd never been there before, and then I turned around and I saw that other shot, so I did 2 shots in, you know, like a half hour. This was kind of a gift because I was in a parking garage and I wasn't even thinking of this, and then I couldn't find anything in a parking garage, and what I do is if I don't see anything, I turn around. And I turned around and it was like a gift, you know, it was like, this was perfect. This is in Berlin. One day we were shooting in the Central Park, and we invite people on Facebook to come to these to see us shoot. And one day this gentleman came. It was like 5:30 in the morning. It was 20 degrees out, and then he asked us when we got done. He goes, what would you think of the possibility of shooting with American Ballet Theater with the Swans? You know, it was like at Lincoln Center, and it's like that would be like the Holy Grail, right? And 3 weeks later, we were doing this, and we did it in 4 minutes. We did 4 different variations. I had a Bluetooth earpiece in my ear, and my assistant was in the back, and I had 2 cameras set up, and we knocked it out in like 4 minutes, and it was pretty much the highlight. One of the girls afterwards, you know, like here I am, this chubby middle-aged man standing next to 20 people that have been training their whole life, and just, you know, feeling so out of place. But then afterwards, a girl came up and said her mom had been battling with cancer and been following our project, and I signed a book for her and gave her, and she just started crying. And it was like, to me, that everybody's the same. I mean, everybody goes through, no matter what, they go through this, and this was such a gift that I feel that is given, you know, all the time. I have a friend that plays harmonica for Willie Nelson, and we did this picture with his guitar, and the crew just kept telling me, like, I'd better not drop that guitar because it's like very famous. The guitar's name's Trigger. It has a hole in it, and they keep taking it apart and repairing it from the inside so it doesn't fall apart, but it's his favorite guitar. This is Boston Ballet. This is called the Eisbach Wave. It's in Munich, and it was funny because I needed to stand on that railroad tie, and it was super slippery with slime, and I asked one of the surfers if I could borrow his surfboard, and he helped me up there. It was pretty funny. But to me, you know, the freedom of having a wireless camera, like to be able to do this, I think it's important to have, you know, if people are wanting to do this stuff, it's especially in public, to make sure you have somebody with you, because I was in Chicago 3 years ago, and I was about 4 feet from my camera, and some kid in a hoodie jumped out of the bushes and grabbed my tripod and ran away. And I don't run anymore. I ran for about 10 feet after him and in my tutu, but I don't know what I was going to do if I caught him. And this one is called Franco, and this is my friend Peter, who's here today. This was an amazing day, and that's his dog Franco, and we did this shot. I'll never forget that. It was so much fun. And this is going to be in our new book coming out by the end of the year. So I was in Taiwan last week, and I was invited there by Marie Claire magazine to be their guest for their 10K Tutu run that they've been having for 5 years. And so I was staying at a hotel where it was that looked out over Taipei 101, and they actually let me get on the roof like crazy. I couldn't believe that. I mean, I asked. I always ask, but they said, no problem. We'll take you up there. So, okay, we're on the roof. I don't know if you can hear it, but. Lena. Sorry, Lena. It's the first time you showed your face. Oh my God. I hope this works. So that's the shot. And I did the dive, and it worked. I kind of wish I was closer, but I only had one chance at it, and it was over. Once the tutu gets wet, it's hard to dry it off. But this was last week. It was an amazing trip. I love Taiwan, and people are so nice. And then my glasses ended up in the pool. So, oh my gosh. So it's just all about the adventure, and so we had to fish my glasses out. This is in Provincetown. This is in Munich. And Bloomingdale's is a big sponsor of ours, and it's one of those things where anybody else that would ask to do that, nobody would ever let them do that. But they said, sure, let's go get a ladder. And so I'm climbing this thing, and I'm like balancing on that thing, and I'm like, I can't believe that they actually let me do that. This one was in Georgetown, Colorado, and behind me were these Jeep races where they put steel spikes on their tires and they race, and it looks so pleasant and serene, but it was just like V8 engines, just like with no exhaust, no mufflers at all. It's just all open headers. And I've been doing this 16 years, and it's like I always think that how tired of this am I getting, but I know it's helping people, on like people on social media. They love to see this, and I love doing it, so I'm always doing more. I'm shooting a lot more at night now. This was in Washington, D.C., Cherry Blossom Festival. This one, I was shooting, and we were doing a trip it's called Dare to Tutu, and we have this event where people get together and we travel around the city and we make photographs. And it was raining that day, so we went Central Park to Grand Central, and we see Joe McNally, the photographer, on the train, and his producer assistant knew our project, and she asked if we were going to Grand Central, and that's where his class was going, and he set up a shot of me, and this was before that. He did a shot where all his students were in the front and they were doing on-camera flash, and so he was doing a really slow shutter speed and had them pop their strobe at the same time, and it ended up in the National Geographic center of the National Geographic Instagram book, and Joe, it was a fun day. And I had actually put my tripod down, and I didn't know the policies about putting a tripod down. So I had Linda and my business manager kind of hiding around it. And then I came back to the camera, and there's two security guards, like with, assault rifles, and I thought, oh God, I'm in trouble. But one of the cops was a fan of our project, and he offered to take us to other parts that nobody else could go of Grand Central. It's in Arizona, the cracked earth. You know, and it was very funny because I was in Florida and I was by myself, and I was doing the shot, and these kids walked by and they kind of chuckled, and I always have postcards and stuff just to explain what I'm doing, and I asked them if they'd be in my photograph, and I said, if you could just go over on this side and look out at the ocean, maybe hold hands. And she kind of got really shy, and she looked at me and she goes, it's our first date. So they had never held hands or anything, so it was very cute. But that night, the boy, I mean, they're like 17, like emailed me, and I sent him the picture, and he wanted the picture. This was an image I did at the Arizona Cardinals, and they wanted me to do the shot during the game, and I set it up, and we only had like 30 seconds during a commercial to do it. And actually what happened is I saw a couple cops, and they said that I was lucky. They had no idea I was doing that. It was in front of 80,000 people, and they were running out to taser me. And the people from the Cardinals didn't tell them that I was going to do that, except CBS knew, but the police didn't know. But luckily they didn't do it. But it could have been cool if I did get tased, you know. I mean, it would have been good publicity, I think. This was about a month ago at like 1:30 in the morning. And never step on one of those manhole covers with bare feet. They're like super hot. This was after I'd met with the NFL vice president. This was one of the jet shots, and they, you know, the client said, why don't you go stand on the wing? You know, it was like, really? It's awesome. I mean, it's just amazing, the things. So I never thought that I would get excited about a picture. And then one of our sponsors is a stable in New Jersey. They have like 100 horses at their stables, huge stable. And they said they had a zebra. And I found their arena was all natural lit. And this is like all like, this was the shot. It's like incredible. I mean, it was all natural light coming from the top, you know, and the sides. And this is one of my favorite shots. Like, I really, like, this is what keeps me doing it. If I could get one of these off every once in a while. But this thing, like, zebras are not like horses, they're like donkeys. I mean, it's the funniest thing ever. And they make noise like donkeys. And they run like this and not like, you know, like a horse. And so when I let go of the rope, he just went to the other end and was like bucking like a donkey. It was the funniest thing ever. He's about a year old. This is 26 inches of snow in front of my house in New Jersey. It's very cold. This is one of those things where I had the remote in my hand, but it was one of the cheap remotes that I could just dive in the water and then throw it away. And now I use Pocket Wizard, and they're way more reliable. But I don't jump in the water with them either. I usually have somebody there with me, and they'll just, you know, we'll count to, you know, 3, and then when I hear the camera start going off, that's when I'll jump, and I usually get one frame. The woman on the right came over and asked me if I was well, and then told me to move because it was a very dangerous spot I was in. This is in Fort Worth. This is new. This is Jefferson Memorial. This is that rock on the left, or the rock that's like a really famous rock that Ansel Adams shot, I think back in the 30s, and it was pristine back then. It was just like worn and beautiful, and now it's like people like me, are climbing all over it. And there were about 50 tourists taking the same sunrise picture on the right side of my frame. This is Death Valley, but it was wintertime, so it was good. This one, I'm really not sure why I did this, but I did, and got back in my car and wondered why I did that. It was pretty much against the law, I'm pretty sure, but it was 5 a.m, so. And my wife told me not to do anything stupid, but I did it anyway. And this one, there was 3 assistants on the right side making sure I didn't. I mean, it was a walk signal. This was 2009. So I think that, what I get what I've gotten out of this whole experience is that, with social media and everything that everybody's doing and all the amazing projects people are doing, I think that it really shows when the people are doing something out of love and passion for what they're doing, and it's not just something to, make money and to that'll come with your love and passion. I think not that that's the most important thing, but I think that it was a surprise to me that this happened, and I consider photography a gift, and I'm very lucky to have found something that I love to do. There's like this one was 2 o'clock in the morning in my front yard, and I was shooting, and there was light out, but I couldn't figure out really how to make it pop, so I just asked Linda to go stand and hide behind me way back by a tree with a flashlight. And it was kind of funny because there was like water on my lens, and it made that flare. I mean, it was snowing out too, so my camera was soaked. I mean, it was like a lot of the times I'm shooting, my camera gets really wet, but they're sealed pretty good, so. This is in Canada. This one I did for my cousin. He's a federal court judge in Arizona, and his wife asked me if I would do this, and this is now in his office. It's like 64 inches wide. So this was last week in Taipei, and this is the beginning of the run. And there was all different runs that day, so there was like 6,000 people there. So that's it. Thank you.